If you feel like you keep falling for the wrong people, this episode is for you. First, we're going to dive into why this pattern of catching feelings for the wrong person exists, and then we're going to talk about how to break that cycle. And then at the end of the episode, I'm going to answer a question about how to move forward when your partner's roommate of the opposite sex is a threat to your relationship. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease, whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out. I believe dating can be fun, especially when we learn to break the patterns that hold us back from the love we deserve, and that is what we're getting into today. So, how annoying is it to keep running into dead ends in your dating life? Like, everyone who you really like continues to be a disappointment. Maybe they don't like you back. Maybe they like you back, but they're moving across the world, or they don't want to do long distance, or maybe they like you back and they have a funny way of showing it, like they don't ever text you back to make plans. I've been there, and I know a lot of people dating have run into this and keep running into this. And look, I was stuck in this cycle too before I met my husband, Johnny. I chased after the wrong people over and over, and I had to work so hard to stop falling for the wrong type of person. So, as we go through the reasons why this happens and how to fix it, I will share my personal experience. And I would love to hear your experience as well. You can drop a comment if you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, or you can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I love hearing from you. You can hit me up with questions anytime. So, what is the wrong person? Let's get on the same page here. When I say wrong person, I mean someone who is not aligned with you, doesn't share your values, doesn't treat you well, and is just not someone you can have the relationship that you want with. The wrong person doesn't mean that they're a bad person, it just means they're not the right fit for you. So let's get into 6 reasons why you might keep falling for the wrong person. Keep in mind, some of these might resonate, some might not. And the good news is that no matter what feels true for you, you can address it. And it's not the end of the world. You're not stuck. All right, the first one is you are attracted to what's familiar, like most people. I mean, here's the thing, your brain doesn't care about what is healthy, it cares more about what's familiar, right? That's kind of like a security thing. It just wants what it already knows. And things that are unfamiliar or new or different can seem threatening or scary or just not it. If you think about it, it's easier to get into something, or in this case, it's easier to catch feelings for someone who feels familiar. Like, what gets you more excited and pumped up? Hearing the song that you listened to on repeat in high school, or listening to a brand new song from an artist you're not familiar with? There's a reason why you might not love a new album from an artist on the first listen, because it's not familiar yet, but after a few listens, you can be super into it. And this is kind of how attraction works too. Like, we tend to be attracted to people who have similar qualities and traits and even appearances as people that we've been attracted to in the past, or sometimes who are like the people who raised us. Look, this is me. I mean, I grew up with an avoidant, dismissive dad who has some narcissistic qualities as well. And I didn't realize that my ex was pretty much exactly the same until a year after our breakup. Like, that realization that I had picked someone so similar to my dad hit me like a truck. It's hard to see it when you're in it, thanks to rose colored glasses or just being in denial, dating for potential, and a bunch of other stuff we're going to get into. So, if you're mostly familiar with people who keep you at an arm's length distance, who are hard to get close to, who make you feel like you need to earn their affection, then that might be who you keep going for unless you consciously choose differently. And we will get to that. The second reason why you might keep falling for people who are the wrong fit is that you are focusing on sparks and chemistry and butterflies over compatibility. And raise your hand if you have ever dated someone who you knew was going to be trouble, but you just couldn't help it. It's like the cookies in the cookie jar you're not supposed to touch. You know it's bad for you, but you just can't resist. I mean, that is what this is. And look, we're human, right? Some people are just irresistible to us, but we have to dig deep and remember that attraction and sparks and butterflies cannot sustain a relationship, especially not a healthy relationship. The spark is typically about instant attraction, which that could be physical or intellectual or emotional, but it also could be your nervous system confusing anxiety for excitement. And that's why following the spark is not the best advice in dating. Like, if you're someone who continues to look for the spark, crave the spark, just that's all you're focused on, you're going to keep falling for the wrong people. And look, that's not to say that if you have the spark, that means you're doomed. You just need to widen your focus a little bit, broaden that focus so that you're also making sure that you are compatible, that there's alignment and other key things that are needed for a relationship to last and be healthy. Sometimes the spark really is just that tension of not knowing if it's going to work out, of wanting someone so badly, but knowing that maybe they're not available. And if someone makes you feel like you're on an emotional roller coaster, that's not romance. That is your fight or flight system getting a workout. You deserve someone you have good chemistry with. Absolutely. But again, that can't carry a relationship. If you only focus on chemistry and ignore, the fact that your values don't align or that they treat you poorly, you're going to end up in the same place that you always end up in, feeling bad, brokenhearted, or just like down about dating. Unfortunately, you can have amazing chemistry with someone who treats you like shit. The first guy I went out with after my breakup is an example of this. He was so hot, like he had washboard abs, he had a slight southern accent, and honestly, I'm a sucker for pretty much any accent. And we had great sex. But he also fell off the grid after the day, basically, after we hooked up, and promptly told me he was going to focus on another connection with someone else. Chemistry isn't enough. And luckily, that happened to me after 3 dates, not 3 months. And I honestly made every mistake in the book on that one. Okay, the third reason you might be trapped in the cycle of falling for the wrong person is that you don't actually know what you want. Maybe for you, it's less about familiarity or chasing sparks and more just that you don't know what your needs are or what you want. And you will continue to fall for people who aren't a match for you if you don't know who is the type of person that you want to fall for. It's like expecting to end up in a destination but not having the map. How do you know where you're going to go? So, my question to you is, when was the last time you revisited your list of what you want and need in a partner? If you think you've been in a cycle of continuing to catch feelings for people who ultimately end up disappointing you, it could be a good time to revisit or just have a refresher or do a gut check. Like, look at your list and see if what's on it still resonates with you. Does your list ring true for you, or is it mostly comprised of surface level things that don't matter or things that you think you should want? If you need help with this is absolutely something you can do on your own with a therapist, journaling, but I also have a course called How to Identify Your Needs. It'll take you an hour, so you can check that out in the show notes if you are serious about trying to figure this out and want a roadmap to finding your person. And I've talked about this a bunch, so I won't get too deep into it, but nailing down my needs in a partner is what changed the entire game for me and made the biggest impact on my ability to date intentionally with confidence in myself and in the fact that I would find someone who could meet my needs. Understanding and crystallizing my needs is what helped me recognize people who could show up in the way I needed and people who definitely couldn't. Dating without knowing your needs is like going to Costco without a grocery list and you're just wandering around all the aisles and all the stuff in there, hoping that whatever you need at home will just jump out at you. That's not how it works. You need a list when you go to Costco. Otherwise, I don't know what you're doing. Same goes for dating. You need to know what you're looking for if you are going to be dating intentionally. So, this could be a powerful thing for you to do that you can literally do this weekend. So, check out my course link below. It'll help guide you through it and you can get it done in like an hour. Okay, the fourth reason we go for people who are wrong for us is that we are not great at spotting red flags yet. So, kind of related to what we just talked about, you could keep falling for the wrong person because you're not picking up on the red flags soon enough, or you have those rose colored glasses on and you're just kind of choosing to not see them. And it could be that you're dating people who are clearly showing you signs that they're not the right fit for you or they're not able to show up for the relationship you want, but maybe you're focusing on their potential or trying to change them or fix them, or you just, again, are just actively choosing to ignore red flag behavior. And we'll get into how to spot red flag behavior in the next section. Just know that if this is you and if you need to work on your red flag radar, it is definitely something you can address. The fifth reason you might be stuck in the cycle of falling for the wrong people is the anxious-avoidant trap. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say anxious and avoidant, check out my deep dive into attachment theory and explanation of attachment styles below. I have a whole episode on this, so you can just do that or look it up. I have plenty of resources on this, on my Instagram and in the podcast. So I'm not going to explain it here. But if you are more anxiously attached, you may be drawn to folks who are avoidant. And the opposite is true as well. If you're avoidant, you are probably going to be drawn to more anxiously attached daters. So there's this push pull dynamic happening, right? Where the avoidant pulls away, the anxious person chases, and then maybe the anxious person pulls away and the avoidant person chases. It's very cat and mouse. And the reason it's a trap is that both people are not comfortable with intimacy. Both do not feel secure when it comes to intimacy. So the dynamic continues to perpetuate itself while also feeling like it could level out at any moment. And that's what kind of keeps you stuck. It's so frustrating. And I was in this trap for over 5 years with my ex. We never solved it. The answer for us was just to break up. And I'm not saying it's impossible to solve this if you're in this trap with someone, but it's definitely a huge challenge and it requires both people to want to solve it and actually put in the work to solve it. The danger of this trap is that it can feel exciting and dramatic and almost addicting. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's just our attachment wounds playing tug of war. This could be why you keep going for people who kind of attract the insecurely attached parts of yourself, whether you're avoidant or anxious or disorganized. And here's the kicker: if this is you, dating someone who is securely attached might feel boring or even like a turnoff. So that's super fun. So this one doesn't necessarily apply to everyone, but it definitely could be keeping you stuck, falling for the wrong people. Attachment isn't the answer to everything, like all the issues that come up in dating, but it certainly there is a lot related to attachment wounds and the wounds we have from childhood in how we date, and it does show up in so many different ways in dating and relationships. All right, and the last reason why you might keep falling for the wrong people is that you have the fixer mindset. You are dating for potential. So I touched a little bit earlier on this, but it deserves its own little call out. And if you date for potential, you're potentially going to keep falling for the wrong person. And dating for potential is like when you are seeing someone and they're kind of falling short, or maybe they're like kind of doing the things that you're looking for in a partner, but not at the level you want. And you're like, well, maybe it'll change. Maybe if I just ask them enough times, maybe if I act this way, it'll cause them to want to do this. And you kind of feel like you can inspire people to act a certain way, or you can change them, but you can't. And the issue with this is that you're not really dating them, you're dating a version of them that you hope they become, which is not real. If you're dating someone and you're currently thinking, oh, they'd be perfect if they only did XYZ, you might be falling for the wrong person there. And we will get into how to address that in the next section. So we just went through 6 reasons, possibly, why you could be falling for the wrong people. And here is just one thing I want you to keep in mind: you can fall in love with anyone. And this is a tough pill to swallow, but you can have feelings for pretty much any type of person. And just because you love them doesn't mean they're the right person for you. And that is so hard. It took me so long to wrap my mind and heart around this truth. Love isn't enough to make it work. Compatibility, alignment, and so many other key things need to be present for a healthy relationship to last. So, of these 6 contributing factors to the cycle of falling for the wrong people, which are being attracted to familiarity, focusing on sparks, not knowing what you want or how to spot red flags, being stuck in the anxious avoidant trap, and dating for potential, which one resonated with you most? Shoot me a DM on Instagram at dating not intentionally, or drop a comment if you are listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube. We talked about what contributes to the cycle of falling for the wrong people, but how the heck do we stop doing this? I'm going to share 5 ways to work on ending this pattern so you can start spending more time on people who would be the right match for you. And let's get on the same page about who is the right match for you. This is going to be someone who can meet your needs, someone who wants the same things as you in a relationship, someone who has aligned values with you, and someone who can show up as the partner you want, who can communicate and listen and treat you with respect and all of these things that you deserve in a relationship. That is the right match for you. So the first one is let people show you who they are. And this addresses dating for potential. This addresses spotting red flags. Like this, when you truly can see people for who they are, you will know quicker if they are the right match for you or not. And what that looks like is paying attention to actions over words. Like, seriously, if someone is saying they want to meet you, but they're not making plans with you, stop paying attention to their words, start paying attention to their actions. So they're not making plans, they're not following through, they're not making time in their schedule for you, they're not agreeing to see you. That's what to pay attention to, not them saying, oh, I want to see you, but I'm just so busy, or oh, I wanted to reach out, but I just got so caught up with work. Like, actions over words every time. Another way to let people show you who they are is to accept how they are today. If nothing changed about them, would you be happy? Could you be okay in that relationship? If the answer is no, they're probably not it. Can you accept them how they are right now? That is how you stop dating for potential. It's not about how they could act if they wanted to. It is about how they're acting right now, today. Are they treating you the way you want to be treated? Are they showing up for you the way you want someone to show up for you? So if nothing changed, could it be okay? This is how you avoid dating for potential. Another way to let people show you who they are is to stop and actually take time to reflect on what they're doing and saying. So that means implementing active reflection and journaling, taking notes after each date. How did you feel? What were they doing? What were they saying? Did it line up? Like if they're saying, I want a serious relationship, I'm ready to find someone to get married, and then the next move they make is asking you for, some spicy pictures or like trying to be like, okay, so what do you like in the bedroom? And you've only met up 2 times. Like that's not someone who is actually serious and ready for a relationship. I'm sorry. It's just not. So make sure you're reflecting on their actions and evaluating whether or not you think it's a red flag. And another way to let people show you who they are is to stop analyzing their behavior and ask yourself if you like it. It's not why are they acting this way? Why did they do this? Why did they watch my story but they didn't text me back yet? It's do I like being treated this way? Do I like how they're showing up? If the answer is no, that's a data point. That is not something to ignore, and it's not something that you can necessarily change, right? The trap is being like, well, maybe if I text them this, or maybe if I act this way, they'll suddenly start acting the way I want them to. No, you show up authentically, you're going to let them show you who they are, and you're going to decide if you like it. Okay, the second way we get out of this pattern of choosing and falling for the wrong people is to avoid letting our fear of being alone lead the show. So, if you're making decisions based on the fact that you just don't want to die alone, like you're like, I'll take anyone, I just don't want to be alone, that's a surefire way of getting into the wrong relationship. So, I think this is why it's so important to nail down your needs. You've got to be led by what you want, not pushed by your fears. So, this means not lowering your standards. It means remembering that it's better to be alone than in the wrong relationship. And it's also about making your life as a single person so good that the relationship needs to bring a lot of value. It also means not waiting to live till you're with someone. It means living now for you. And I do have a whole episode on how to thrive when you're single. I'll link it below. But that's part of this is like the relationship, if it's not adding value to your life, you don't want it. That's how you avoid ending up with the wrong person. Okay, the third thing I have on this list is not overlooking red flags. It's spotting those red flags and making sure that when you see a red flag, you actually do something about it. And when I say do something about it, that means you make a decision to keep dating them or not. Like it could be a deal breaker, or you ask a question, you get curious. So if someone does something that's a red flag, you can clarify. You can be like, hey, I noticed you did this. Like, what was your thought process behind that? Or like, I'm kind of interpreting this behavior as this. Like, what did you mean by that? You can ask a question when you notice red flags. And red flags could be things like love bombing, breadcrumbing, right? When someone's like kind of giving you just enough attention, but not actually making plans with you. Red flags all involve ghosting you and coming back at their leisure. Red flag. That could be people saying one thing and doing the opposite or not following through. And the key here is to notice these red flags, even if someone is super attractive and makes you feel butterflies and you have all the sparks. I think that's the hard part. Like a lot of this is easier said than done. So if you're like, yeah, Talia, of course I can pay attention to red flags. But then once you're in the moment and you're with someone who you find really attractive, I get it. It can be hard to focus on this. But that goes back to what I was saying about reflection, making sure that you're reflecting after each date and after each interaction and checking in with how you feel. And if you liked their behavior, you are the chooser. You're not trying to be chosen. All right, the fourth one is working on self esteem and self trust. You are worthy of someone meeting your needs, and you don't have to do, be, or say anything extra to be worthy of that, to earn that. You are worthy as you are right now. And some quick tips to work on self esteem and self trust when you're dating is to keep asking yourself, do I like who I am when I'm with this person? Do I feel like myself? Do I feel like a version of myself that I like? Or am I the anxious version of myself? Am I the preoccupied version of myself? Am I the obsessive version of myself? What side of you are they bringing out? That's a really good way to work on your self-esteem and self-trust. Checking in with yourself and then also using that information to make decisions. It's not just about collecting the information, it is also about deciding what to do when you have that knowledge. Another way to build self trust in dating is to stop running to your friends with every little text and interaction to figure out what to do. It is not helping you build trust with yourself. And while your friends love you and have your best interest at heart, I'm sure you have incredible friends. They're not the best source of dating advice because what they would do isn't necessarily what you would do based on your individual values, what you're looking for, what you need, and all that stuff. Also, I really believe our friends tend to be way overprotective. And again, because they love us, but they're not necessarily as forgiving as maybe we should be sometimes. Back to what I was saying earlier, put your needs first and slow down. So I touched on this earlier, but to recognize and even attract more of the right people, knowing what you need, owning that and prioritizing that will keep you focused more on compatibility and alignment and less on sparks and what you see through your rose colored glasses. I truly believe that knowing and owning your needs is the balance to having rose colored glasses and dating. Like when you measure people against your needs and how you want to feel in a relationship, it's going to become so much clearer who is right and who is wrong for you. And yes, I know this is all easier said than done. I could think of a few people in my dating experience who I really hit it off with and connected with, and ultimately they didn't meet my needs and I had to let them go. And that was hard. It was hard to let someone go who I had an amazing connection with, who I knew just did not meet my needs. The last one here, number 6, is date outside of your type. So if you keep going for the wrong person, this is kind of a more practical way of fixing this pretty much immediately, is just going outside your type, dating people who you wouldn't normally go for. You might be surprised. This is my go-to tip for honestly breaking any pattern in dating, especially if you keep going for people who feel familiar emotionally, or if you have a certain look or a certain personality you're going for. Branching out a bit will help you have different experiences. I need you to hear this. Dating outside your type is not a surefire way to find your person, but I think it can shake you out of a pattern. Go into it with that goal. Go into it with the desire to just explore and experiment and see what you learn. Don't put pressure on yourself to find the one the second you date someone you don't typically go for. It's just to break yourself out of your pattern and notice what's different when you try different things, when you try to go out with different people. Look, this obviously worked for me. I dated a few guys outside my type until I ultimately found Johnny, my husband, who has a very different look and personality than the men I've dated long term in the past, and is luckily very, very, very different from who my dad is, especially emotionally. And it definitely felt weird in the beginning to be with someone who was emotionally secure and could validate my emotions and listen to me without getting defensive. It felt like a mind fuck, to be honest. And I felt like I was going crazy at first because I expected something so different. And Johnny just shows up in a way that I had never had a guy show up for me in that way before. If there's anything that you take away from this episode, it is that I really want you to reflect on your patterns. That could be journaling, it could be in therapy, it could just be kind of meditating on it, whatever that looks like for you. You can't really change your patterns if you don't know they exist. So think about what we went through, think about what resonated with you the most, and target that pattern to break first. And you can take any step you want and just know that the first thing you try might not work. It might backfire, but that's still progress. That's still information. So keep going. I'm really encouraging you to keep trying here. And finally, the last quick tip before we get into our question from a listener is that if you are continuing to show up for the wrong people, stop interpreting that as that you are broken or something's wrong with you. Their behavior is not about you. You have to understand that the person who is breadcrumbing, ghosting, love bombing, playing hot and cold, acting weird, they're going to act that way with anyone they date. It's not because of you. So don't internalize their behavior as information on your worth. You've got to learn how to separate these things. All right, welcome back. Let's get into today's listener question. I, 25 female, have been seeing a guy, 27 male, for about 4 months, but we were friends for 6 months before that. Okay, so they've known each other for 10 months, friends 6 months, dating 4 months. We are seeing each other exclusively, but not an official relationship. Interesting. From when we first met, I could always tell that he had a very close relationship with his female roommate. They were constantly doing things like going out to eat every week, going on weekend trips together, meeting each other's family and friends, and I got the vibe that she might be into him romantically, but not that he felt the same way. He never mentioned if they had any romantic or sexual history, and I never asked, partly because I was nervous about knowing the answer. That's honest. Recently, I got suspicious because he didn't want me spending the night with him at his apartment, and he admitted it was because his roommate has feelings for him and he didn't want to make her uncomfortable. Ugh. I then asked if they ever had any romantic or sexual history, and he told me they had sex a few months before he met me, but he was never interested in dating her. After they had sex, she told him that she wanted to date him, but he didn't feel the same way. I'm furious that he kept this information from me, but he says that he didn't tell me because he thought if I wanted to know, I would have asked. I mean, okay, fine. He was apologetic and admitted that he was also scared of losing me if he told me. Now I don't know what to do. Do I continue seeing him? He also sees no issue in continuing to be best friends with this girl because he says since he's told her he's not interested in dating her, he doesn't think he's leading her on. I think he's being unfair to her by continuing to give her hope. She also has been complaining to him about me, saying that I don't talk to her enough. He claims to be impartial between the two of us, but I hate this whole dynamic. I love him and I want to date him, but I don't know how to deal with this. Oh my god. Ugh. So I chose to read this question today because it aligns with what I shared earlier in the episode. Like, we need to pay attention to red flag behavior and we need to recognize when someone is not partner material based on their actions. And I don't think this guy is partner material at all. First of all, prioritizing the feelings of his roommate over his, I guess you're not his girlfriend, but whatever person he's dating is not great. I've been there. That sucks. I remember when I was dating my ex, like the first, like before we were official, he went on a road trip with a girl, like it was a group, and there was a girl there who I think his friend like had meant to set him up with. And he didn't want to tell her that he was seeing me because he didn't want to make it weird. Like, no, that is not acceptable behavior. That is not stand up behavior. Like, I would say definitely end it with this guy. And if you're listening, I'm wondering if you agree. The other red flag here is that he is like, well, I told this girl I'm not interested in dating her, so I'm going to keep seeing her and her feelings are her problem. What? No, if he really cared about her, I think he would stop seeing her as much and like going on all these, going out to eat, doing weekend trips, all these things. Like, this is so messy and I would get the hell out of the situation. He doesn't seem to care about your feelings. He doesn't seem to care about her feelings. He just seems to care about making things easier for him. Meanwhile, he's the one who made his bed and he's refusing to lie in it. Ugh, this makes me so frustrated. I do not like this type of guy. You can do so much better. And look, there are situations where people have slept with their roommate, but like if you're a mature person and you've had sex with your roommate and you're not dating them, you've got to know how to set clear boundaries. Like, why would he continue to hang out with her if he's not interested in dating her? He is getting something out of that relationship without giving her what she wants, and no one's happy. I guess except for him. Oh my god, I hate this so much. And it's like, okay, if you continue to date this guy, what is the plan here? That you're just never going to sleep over at his place? That's not acceptable. That's not okay. Like, I would ask him, like, wait, what's the plan here? He's gonna run into this issue no matter who he dates, unless it's his roommate. I hope this helps. I don't usually like go so hard on these questions and give such a clear answer, but my clear answer on this one is dump the guy. Let me know what you think. If you've been in the situation, drop a comment if you are listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, or you can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. All right, and that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for spending this time for me. Thank you for trusting me. And don't forget, you are doing great. And I would love it if you share this episode and this show with someone who is navigating dating and might need a little confidence boost or some tough love. If my show has helped you at all in your journey, you can help other daters discover it by leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. You can follow wherever you're listening. It all helps. I really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you next time.